Good morning. Good morning. I just hope the morning is very good to all of you out there. I am Reverend Dr. Barian Staples, and I'm just like to say I'm glad that we're here today and let's welcome each other today. All right. Well, it is so nice to see you. Well, somewhat to see you. Every time I say that, I think of romper room. I see Mary, I see all those kind of things, and they don't really see the people, but I feel like I see everybody in my heart, in my spirit. And my goodness, do we have a lot of things happening today or this week has been amazing. I think the thing that is on everybody's mind is what we've been hearing about, the blue wave, the blue wave. And here at Race and Cultures Bridging the Divides, I've often said that we always need to understand that you cannot, for some reason, deal with anything without talking about race. And then cultures is the existence of wherever your environment is, all those norms and values that you bring into places. I mentioned Walmart, the grocery stores, the restaurants. There's always a culture, no matter what we do, and how we um lack of a better term, how we integrate ourselves in these different cultures is so important. And what we're having out there right now are serious culture wars. We have seen it in this election. You hear people talking about the blue state, the red state, whatever state. I always say it's a state of mind. That's what we need to understand that we need to process. Again, I'm Reverend Dr. Barry Staples. Please like and subscribe this channel. Up in the corner, there's a QR code where we're nonprofit. It helps us to be able to produce things and to get the message out in terms of sharing thoughts and sharing understanding. To donate to the cause, Race and Cultures Bridging the Divides is part of. Let me see, how did I do this? Part of Race and Ethics Corporation that you see on my shirt. And we are so glad to be able to be here. Again, my my co-host, my wife, Reverend Jennifer Staples, is not here today, but I know she's always here in spirit. She's out doing her work thing and all that. So I just want to say that we have a lot of issues going on, and one of the issues that we have going on that we must understand is all about being woke. Now, I told y'all about being woke. Okay, woke, a bridge of honor. Excuse me. Number one, a badge of honor and knowledge and wisdom. Number two, to have or be marked by an active awareness. Well, we've been actively in aware this week, haven't we? Number number three, to have or be marked by an active awareness. Uh, Excuse me, number two still. To have or be, I'm so woke, I'm just all over the place. Awareness of systemic injustices and prejudices, and we can throw racism in there too, especially those related to civil and human rights. My goodness. And number three, be woke is to be wise, open-minded, kind, and empathetic. And empathetic is not some new age term that someone said. Empathy has to exist since the beginning of time. How do you feel what other people feel? Otherwise, you just cold-hearted. And number four, it's the opposite of being asleep. So, we wake up in the morning and to get going, a lot of times we grab that cup of coffee like I just did, and we try to understand how we're going to get our day going. Well, let me tell you, a lot of things have been happening in the minds of other people. And I'm just going to focus on the election that took place in New York City because it is a direct reflection of what race and cultures is all about to help us understand how to be woke because it deals specifically with the race of people in a culture that people are interjecting and intersecting and saying things and they don't really know. So the title of this episode is Zohran Mamdani Life. The state of Israel, be it Jew and Muslim. Now, Israel and Muslim, let's just say Palestine. And the message that is given to the convicted felon in chief, yes, 30, and this is truth, 2 Timothy 2:15. So this is somewhat, I'm an ordained pastor. My wife is also, so I can't escape my calling. So as I was thinking about this episode, I said 2 Timothy 2:15 says, be diligent and show yourself approved to God, to be a worker who does not need to be ashamed and rightly divide the word of truth. So in other words, I'm not ashamed about saying the truth about what is happening. So today we're going to have a little biblical journey to bring it up to a situation that is happening. And I'm going to focus mostly on Zohran Mamdani and his situation because it talks about everything in a capsule, about the whole country, the mindset of the country. You have issues of culture, you have issues of racism, you got issues of politics, you got all these things. And that's what Race and Cultures Bridging the Divide is all about, to try to examine these things. So this title, Zohran Mamdani Life, Israel, Muslims, so on and so forth, and Trump, the subtitle is, Who's Your Daddy? What do you mean by that, Doc? That's a good question. I'm glad you asked. A lot of people call me Doc, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna go back a little bit. Who's your daddy? So I want us to look at this here. So right here we have a situation. There's a picture. This is supposed to be Abraham, his wife Sarah, Hagar, and Ishmael and Isaac. So just be real clear. Abraham is the father of Isaac, that is referenced toward the Jewish or Israel nation. And Ishmael is Abraham's son, as reference to the Palestinian, and some say the Arab nations. Okay, so who's your daddy? All you people over there that are killing and shooting each other and all this negativity, you are hurting your own family. Don't get it twisted. This is common sense. My grandmother's always used this term, boy, you gotta rely on mother wit. That was common sense. These people that are Palestinian and Israelis are actually all related. It's the same thing when you had the Bosnian Serbian issue going on. The same thing with Ukraine and Russia. I can't make this stuff up. But isn't this something? So Abraham had a daddy. I can't think of his mother's name right now, but she's not. Her name starts with an A. I know that much. I can't remember, but I know in seminary we talked about that. And Terah is his Terah is his father. Is mentioned in Genesis and other books. And think about this: his brothers Nahor and Haran, and their sister Sarah, who is actually became Abraham's wife. Okay, I mentioned before we're going to talk about Abraham's mother, but his siblings, Abraham and his two brothers, Nahor and Haran, his father, and Haran is the father of Lot, who is actually, Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lottie, they don't mention her name either. She turned to the pillar of salt. But anyway, that's another biblical story and study. But Abraham also had a sister, Sarah, that was his wife. Okay, his father, a descendant of Shem, and that's one of Noah's sons, the ark. So just that was a quick little piece about um, Abraham and his lineage. So Next up, I want to share with you this story. Okay. Where does this line go? Where does the line of Abraham go? So up here, you see Ishmael. I call it Ishmael and descendants Isaac too. But if you notice something very interesting, Abraham is the father. Boom. He also had another wife, Keturah. But the most important people are Sarah, and Keturah is important too. But this is very interesting. So Abraham and Sarah got together. They were married. He had Hagar. She was the servant, the maid, whatever. Um, and then Isaac is the other son. Now Ishmael was born before Isaac, but there's something God was doing. And then I won't get into the whole story of Jacob and Esau. Esau was born before Jacob, but he ended up still in the birthright. And Jacob, name became Israel, of course. So what's interesting here, out of Jacob's line from Isaac, there were the 12 tribes of Israel. But guess what? Also, there was 12 people, Ishmaelites of Ishmael, 12 and 12. So I'm going to go through this real quick. I may not read all of it, but God promised to make Abraham into a great nation and bless all people on earth through him. Okay, so the Lord in Genesis 12, 1, 3 said, now this is what I want to just digress a little bit. I'm going to keep that up here. But I had this discussion with the guy. He kind of knows my family. He's Jewish. And we were talking and shared my background, but I asked him some questions. I asked him how did he feel about the man in the White House and his Jewish friend, who's his deputy chief, whatever, Stephen Miller, who promotes Nazism and white supremacy. I got no answer. It was crickets. And then, because I was talking to him about this, and I told him how I do not like Netanyahu because of his actions and how he cozies up to the guy that is a convicted felon in chief, and he is doing all these things and killing people. One war against another war doesn't make it right. This guy told me that I was, because I didn't like Netanyahu, that I was against this. I wanted Israel to be destroyed. I say, first of all, God put Israel there. My arms are too short to box with God. So he's telling me that I'm anti-Semitic. I said, brother, he doesn't even know what it's all about. I grew up in the Chicagoland area. I was always around other people that are Jewish, that are Hispanic, that are Asian. I grew up in a multicultural process with all people because that's how I was taught. And in addition to that, the indigenous people that people call it, my grandfather, great grandfather, they came from the Cherokee line, and so on my mother's side. So I knew long time ago about love that was taught from to me by my mother about loving people. And so he told me, because I didn't like Netanyahu, basically that I was an anti-Semite. It's almost like if you don't agree with the terrible things that a person does, that you hate Jewish people. You know, I don't want to get in. I'm happily married. I love my wife. But when I was in high school, my homecoming date was Jewish. Her father, I mean, he loved me. He gave me books, and I would go over there and we played chess and do things. And I mean, give me a break. That's the problem that I have right now. They're putting Zohran Mamdani into a category like he was Hamas. There's all kind of radical things that happen. Hamas is a terrorist organization. That doesn't mean that all Palestinians are Hamas. And Netanyahu is killing and bombing people, killing them. But the people that all come from Abraham. Okay, Genesis 12:1-3 says, and this is where this guy got really turned around. It says, the Lord has said to Abraham, Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, Tehran, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. In other words, God was telling Abraham, I got your back. If anyone messes with you, they got to deal with me. So that's in a nutshell about Abraham. There's other things that go on through here. I won't get into it uh, anyway. But I want to go over to Ishmael. So we know he had Isaac. The prophecy about Ishmael in 16:12 in Genesis says he will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility towards his brothers. That's something to think about. So, Hagar has Ishmael. Okay, this is what it's really. I'm gonna go back up here. Okay, and the angel of the Lord told Hagar that he would make her descendants numerous. So Genesis 16:7-10 said the angel of the Lord finding Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was a spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from and where are you going? And she says, I'm running away from my mistress Sarah. Sarai. She answered, then the angel of the Lord told her, go back to your mistress and submit to her. The angel added, I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count. So we have Abraham, and God is working between Abraham and Isaac, and his first son was born to the servant. So Hagar bore Abraham a son, um, gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born to Hagar. Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar had Ishmael. So here we go. I'm going to jump around here. Um, so God promised to make Abraham the father of many nations. So God established an everlasting covenant with Abraham and his descendants. That means Ishmael too. And he says, I will be your God and you will be my people. So here we have the signed everlasting covenant through circumcision. After 8 days, you have to get circumcised to show that, okay, born to Sarah as promised. So he gave both promises for Ishmael and for Isaac. Okay. So in Genesis 17:15-22, God also said to Abraham, as for Sarah, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarah, name is Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of people will come from her. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael might live under your blessing. Then God said, yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. God said, the people of Palestine through Ishmael will also be blessed. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will surely bless him. I will make him fruitful and will greatly increase his numbers. Boy, that just woke me up some more. I got to have a drink of my Java. And he says he will be the father of 12 rulers. Does it remind you of something? The 12 tribes of Israel. There's actually a 13th tribe, the Ethiopians or the Cushites. But that's another Bible study thing. And I will make him into a great nation, but my covenant will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by this time next year, blah, blah, blah. So here we have it here. So we have both Abraham having two sons. Both of them are getting protected by God. Um, And then Abram was not a deadbeat dad. He wanted to know. He said, Abram said to God, if only Ishmael might live under your blessing. And Genesis 17:20 says, and for Ishmael, I have heard you, I will surely bless. I've said this earlier, will make him fruitful and greatly increase his numbers. So you see, all this fighting back and forth all comes under God's protecting both these Ishmael sons of Abraham. My goodness. And God also made Ishmael into a great nation and was with him as he grew up. You can't make this up. This is from my seminary training with, God is blessing Ishmael and Isaac. So we have um Zohran Mamdani going through all these things coming under attack. And he's saying what he is saying about loving people. Um, so Ishmael had 12 children who became tribal leaders, and so was Jacob, who a descendant of Isaac. And now I never forget the story of Isaac when he was dying. He had a servant named Eleazar, and Eleazar took his hand underneath um, Isaac under his glute to give him comfort. That is showing incredible bond and love when you can do that with another man like that. Okay, so we have here, and it goes on here. I'm not going to read through all this thing, but I just wanted you to understand that people try to get it twisted and try to have this whole conflict of Abraham and Isaac and Ishmael and all that as a problem. But Mandami is talking, okay, I hear you. And people are condemning him, saying how he doesn't like Jews, and he's focused on New York City. He's not going over to Israel. But anyway, let's see what Mandami said about Jews. I just go this real quick here. So here you have I said about Jews. So he was elected, represent Queens and New York City and all this stuff. So here we have Madami consistently proudly associates with pro-Palestinian movement in high-profile settings across New York City. So I'm going to just dive through here. Um, so he goes on. So this was an interesting the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel. Mamdani said in the May Town Hall meeting in Jewish Association Federation, one of the city's largest Jewish group, he supports the BDS movement, which lobbies for an economic, cultural, and academic boycott of Israel. Israel and its advocates have fought a decades-long battle to marginalize the movement, which its critics say seeks the end of Israel as a Jewish state. Well, so this is what Madami is saying. My support for BDS is consistent with the core of my politics, which is nonviolence. Nonviolence. Keep that in mind. I don't want, he doesn't agree with anybody, Palestinians and Israelites, Jewish, Hebrew, slash Jewish, Hebrew, so on and so forth, fighting each other. And I think that it is a legitimate movement when you are seeking to find compliance with international law. So what he is saying, not to get rid of Israel. Now, people want to put words in their mouths, always saying he's trying to make Israel not a Jewish state. But this is where it gets interesting. And what he talks about, and you'll hear him talk about this, how he believes Israel should be open to everybody. Recognize the Jewish faith and the Jewish culture has been there since God put in there. So, but people want to put words in his mouth, and you'll hear him say that in a little bit. So he added that the boycott is silently not aimed at individual persons. I'm just jumping through here. Um, so then Madame says, in other words, he goes on here. I'm just going to jump around here. Mm. Then he says, if you were to look at BDS and how it applies to in New York, he says, city, you would say that Cornell Technia is something you will be talking about, he said, referring to the university partnership between the Ivy League University and the marquee Israeli school on New York City's Roosevelt Island. So, what he's talking about here is that I'm going to take care of New York. That's what he's interested in. And then he says, he has been asked if Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state. He stated at the town hall meeting with the United Jewish Association Federation, he feels it should exist with equal rights for all. In other words, he's not saying this, but this is what I'm thinking: equal rights for all. That means that that Palestinians should also be able to go into Israel and be a part of what's going on. That's what Madami is saying. He is saying all these things. So let's look at another fact here. I know we talk about race and culture, and hope that you understanding his. So Madami, he with this, I'm going to read this real quick. I highlighted with the Sikh Indian surname and the indigenous Ugandan first name. Singh is no rarity in the Ugandan capital, where people of Indian descent have lived for more than 125 years. Many people have here boast a multi-hyphenated African Indian identity, as indeed does Zohran Mamdani. Okay, so this is interesting. I'm going to jump down here. Um, it talked about the same time report that an anonymous source alleged to by Jordan Lasker, a well-known eugenist and neo-Nazi, had is trying to create trouble, hacked internal data showing that an application that to Columbia University, or I'm connected to, in 2009, Madami had identified his race as both Asian and Black or African American. Okay, the story sparked outrage from critics who alleged Madami was weaponized identity politics in order to gain preferential access to the prestigious university. Uh, he was not accepted. Okay, Madami said he had ticked what he described as constrained boxes to capture the fullness of my background, the fullness of his background. He is Ugandan, East African. Okay, think about it, in Indian, and that he did not see himself as African American or Black, but as American who was born in Africa. Think about it. But people want to make things out of all kind of crazy issues. Um, so he lived, he's Ugandan. Okay, that's his binary situation. So if you look down here, I go what Obama. Obama's dad was Kenyan from Africa, and his mother was from. She grew up, came from the land of Toto and Auntie Mame and Dorothy out of Kansas, but lived in Hawaii, and she was American, but he wasn't Black enough, and he wasn't white enough. That's what Madami was talking about. So here we have people always trying to put people into racial categories. Excuse the barking in the background if you hear it. So I just want to say that Madami talks about his binary situation. How he ascribes and relates to all people. Many people here consider Madami. This is coming from another source, um, from mm, from Uganda. Uh, it says many have lived their whole lives in Uganda are accepted as African. Yawashi Patel, 71, who was born in Kampala and now lives in that's the capital there. Now lives in Uganda. In England, and recalls childhood swept spent swimming in Lake Victoria, sprawled across the city of Antibes and eating uh, guavas and mangoes. Okay. Nobody looked at us like we were invading the place, Patel recalls. On the way to Antibes, you could buy a whole basket full of mangoes, which we would eat. I would still remember the juices and the mango seeds were, of course, brought from India. Although I had been to India, my mother and father would say, this is like being in India. So you see, Mandami is letting people know that he's multicultural, basically. Um, and right here it says, identity U.S. can be complex. However, not everyone agrees that Madami has the right to claim an African identity. Duh. African American is often used to specify the people of Black African descent who were violently from slavery and all that. I don't use the term African American. I use the term Black because um, a lot of people in America have they have lost a lot of that African connection. I can relate to things out of Africa. I respect and I will participate in things regarding African culture, but I know more about my ancestors here that were here in America before everybody else, so on and so forth. That's another story. So here we have Madami is trying to explain to people how he relates. And so we have other people, Rachel Dolezal, I talked about her. So that's why I say race is a social construct. African is not a race, as this one person said, Jeffrey said. Africa is a continent, a space. It's not a terminus with race, language, or religion. It is populated by all varieties of languages, religion, and ethnic groups. That's what we have to understand. You have South Africans, they're African. But the sad thing about it is the image. You know, you think of Tarzan movies, all the people from Africa, oh, they're all black, 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 black. But then we have a recent situation happen where they just let in all of a sudden 59 South Africans under a false allegation that they were being brutalized by Black Africans. And we've heard that they're going to eliminate allowing people of color basically to come in this country. And they're going to just try to bring in all white South Africans. That's what's been proposed and put into effect by this administration. But that's another story. And it's really another interesting thing when people, I used to talk about in my classes at the university about Egyptians. I said, well, where's Egypt? Oh, it's in Egypt. No, Egypt is in Africa because people didn't want to identify what an African is. African is all that geographic area. Everybody's an African. So Madami's identity is too complex to fit really into a box on a university application when he wrote that, when he's checked those boxes. African, Asian, Muslim. For us Africans, these are not contradictions at all. Zohran Mamdani did not lie, but they're trying to make it out like he did something wrong, but he didn't. So he had a binary existence. So Zohran Mamdani came under all kinds of scrutiny. So let's listen to what this lady says about all this stuff.
Reading Zohran Mamdani's Wikipedia page bio is like doing a deep dive into the decline and fall of the British Empire and post-colonial Indian Africa. Let me tell you why. So I was reading about Mamdani's win for the New York City mayor, and I saw for the first time someone include his middle name, which is Kwame. And I went, oh, Kwame, as in Kwame Nkrumah. And so I did a little bit of digging, and yes, in fact, he was named after the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, who kind of led this nonviolent resistance to allow Ghana its independence. They were the first African country to win its independence, kind of post this colonial era, post World War II. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, his parents must be very interesting. And they are, in fact, quite legit. So his parents are both Indian, right? But he was born in Uganda, and that might confuse a lot of people unless you know a little bit about 20th century world history, which includes a thing called the Indian diaspora. So in kind of the late 19th and then early to mid 20th century, the people of India, which I'm talking about kind of the subcontinent of India, British India, which includes today Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and India, a lot of them moved all around the world to assume kind of jobs and positions and find opportunities across the British Empire, especially in Africa. Now, unfortunately, this is partly because the British preferred Indian kind of mid.
Okay, I just want to interject. India, a faith that people follow, Hindu. So will we be attacking Zohran Mamdani if all of a sudden he said, well, in India, I was Hindu and blah, blah, blah. What would people be saying? People always want to make something up to distract from what's really in front of them. To make Zohran Mamdani that basically, to be honest, like he's a terrorist, like he's Hamas. That's what, if I look at it realistically, they're trying to make him look like he is a terrorist. Move right along. I get it back. Okay, come on. Okay, I'm stuck. I don't know why I said that. Okay.
Workers to Black
Here we go.
African workers, right? But we see this also with like Gandhi, right? I mean, Gandhi spent 20 years as a lawyer in South Africa. We can also see it with like Freddie Mercury, who I think was born or at least was raised in Zanzibar. But anyway, his dad was a professor of post-colonialism and African studies, which would be really fascinating from his specific point of view. And I found that really interesting because Zohran Mamdani, when he went to college, he studied Africana studies. And I thought, at first I was like, well, why was that? And then knowing about his dad, it makes a lot of sense. But his mom is also incredibly legit. She's a filmmaker who made like a really big famous film in India about like street children, basically children who are, born and raised and live and work on the streets of India. And with the proceeds of that film, her mother, Zohran Mamdani's grandmother, has run this massive NGO, this kind of trust bank that provides a ton of resources for working children and street children across India. So like what I'm trying to say is that Zohran Mamdani is like a third generation social activist who is like constantly on the lookout for the marginalized, the needy, and figuring out how he and like the government and the institutions around him can support the people who need the most support. Like, reading Zohran Mamdani's Wikipedia page bio is like doing.
So here we have it. I thought it was interesting that she threw in Freddie Mercury as an example, Queen. Not only do we have another cultural issue with Freddie Mercury and where he came from, but also then you look at other issues that he was gay also. So here we have Zohran Mamdani, comes from a good family. Now you notice something, how he comes from a family that worked with people that have been marginalized. He has it in his DNA to help people that have been oppressed, people that have had issues. That's why he says to all people for Israel to be open to all people. He's not going to, anyway, you can, I want you to put on your critical thinking hats. Okay, be woke. Be woke. Be aware of things. So what else is happening with Zohran Mamdani? So I'm gonna get to some of the meat and potatoes of the criticism here. So let's look and see what they say about this. Is about him going to Israel.
I've said in a UJA
Israel
questionnaire that I believe that you need not travel to Israel to stand up for Jewish New Yorkers. And that is what I will be doing as the mayor. I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their...
He says, you don't have to travel to Israel to stand up for Jewish people. You know, the Bible, you know, I remember the Great Commission, it says, go out to Jerusalem, Samaria, Judea, and all the ends of the world and preach the gospel. So what Jesus Christ was telling us, that your Jerusalem is right here. For Mamdani, his Israel is taking care of the Jewish people right here at home. You know, you often hear ministry begins at home. That's what Mamdani just said. I don't have to go to Israel. I don't have to go to Israel. We have Jewish people. Well, what's really interesting, I'm just getting all over the place, but we have people that are anti-Semitic, people that are attacking Jewish people, synagogues, blowing people up right here in this country. And those same people are trying to find a way to fault Zohran Mamdani for not going to Israel or making some big statement about the Jewish state. And he's trying to say, well, we should love everybody and everybody should be able to go somewhere. The Jewish state will exist regardless if you say it or not. The Jewish practice will continue. Judaism, that is. So I'm
synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not as a Jewish state?
As a state with equal rights.
He won't,
Okay.
he won't say it has a right to exist as a Jewish state.
And his answer was no.
And it
He
is
won't
trying
visit
to
Israel.
I said that
attack him.
That's what he was trying to say.
No. Unlike
No,
you, I
you
answer.
never-
Unlike
you
you, I
never
answer
said
questions
no.
very
Okay.
directly,
All right,
and I
we're
want to
clear.
be
You
very
answered-
clear.
you
I believe
answered-
every state should be a state of equal
Now
rights.
listen
Okay, thank
carefully
Mr.
to this.
Mamdani, can I just...
So they're trying to pin him down, and you have people that are up there, probably other people that are there that have probably done things against Jewish people, and they're trying to make it a political thing toward him. I mean, I can't make this up. It's so incredible. I want you to listen to this also. But stay woke. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. There's a QR code up there. You can donate to our channel, and please like and subscribe. It helps our algorithms. Okay.
When you use words referring to the only Jewish state in the world, like genocide and apartheid, when you call for divestment and all, that is inciting these mobs. And he says shared sense of humanity and all these nice sounding words, but he has a double standard, because if you search his Twitter feed, 15,000 tweets, Sudan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia don't appear, yet the word Israel appears more than 50 times, the word genocide appears more than 26 times. So that tells you where his heart is.
Okay. Briefly, yes.
I am being smeared for echoing the same words as Israeli historians Amos Goldberg and Daniel Blattman. I am being mischaracterized on the stage for echoing the same words of a former Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Olmert, who said recently, "What we are doing in Gaza is a war of devastation. It is indiscriminateness, limitless, cruel, and criminal killing of civilians." I say these things because far too often we take what can be a place of disagreement and instead start to broach beyond that. And these kinds of characterizations, they are part and parcel of what leads to the dehumanization in our city, which is why an elected official in our own city has called for me to be deported. It cannot be disentangled from what's going on right now.
Okay. Thank you, candidate.
Wow. You hear that last part about officials trying to get him deported. And I think that speaks volumes. So, genocide. I'm going to read to you the definition of genocide. It's deliberate and often systematic destruction of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group tell me that hasn't been happening. Hamas attacked. And you know what's so interesting? The reason that they were vulnerable, Israel was vulnerable because Netanyahu was trying to really take away power from the people in Israel, with the Supreme Court things and all that, some political things going on. They were all kind of vulnerable, and Hamas knew that, and they attacked them. So we have a situation here where Madami is trying to look like he's a terrible person because he's not saying Israel, no, the Jewish state. He's saying Israel should exist and should be open to all people. He's including Palestinians in that. But people are trying to sidestep it and make him out to be a monster. Just like the guy that I was talking to that was friends with my family said that I was anti-Semitic because I didn't agree with Netanyahu killing other people. And then he tried to tell me, this guy meant to say this, tried to tell me that the pictures and images that people are seeing, they're just fake. All those people aren't dead. I'm going to tell you right now, in my positions working here where I live at, I worked in a situation where I had patients and people that were from Russia and Ukraine. I would go into sometimes and people will be crying, and their families in Ukraine, they were losing them. They were dying. The same thing happened with, Putin was doing. Netanyahu was doing the same thing Putin is doing. Okay, so then I also have family members who are they have family members over in Palestine, and have lost whole family members, uncles and aunts and cousins, blown away, little children that they never great nieces that they never got to see, that they were planning to try to see. So no one's going to tell me that this is a systematic killing of people. My goodness, y'all heard the story that blew up a hospital. This is awful. So what else does Madami have to say about a lot of these things? Listen to this.
Let's quickly tick through all the things that Trump said about you, and let's get that out of the way. All right, number one, he's attacking you as a communist. Are you?
No, I'm a democratic socialist. That means I believe in dignity for all people.
It means more than that.
Yeah, I think
you're not a communist. I agree with that.
No, I'm not
Dignity
a communist. I think
for all
a lot of
people.
New Yorkers have asked me, what does it mean that you're a democratic socialist?
Yeah.
And I tell them to think about the words of Dr. King from decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There has to be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And that's the heart of it.
I thought on that. You have said that you would arrest Netanyahu if he came to the United States. You've been very outspoken in your criticism of him. Do you stand by that? You would arrest him if he came here, if you were mayor?
I've said that this is a city that believes in international law, and this is a city that wants to uplift and uphold those beliefs. The Prime Minister...
The United States doesn't stand by the International Criminal Court.
It hasn't signed the treaty for the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court, however, has issued a warrant for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu,
as it has... in the United States could you arrest him on?
As it has for Vladimir Putin. I've said that I believe that we should uphold arrest warrants by the International Criminal Court, and that we should do so only in abiding with all of the laws in front of us. I'm not going to make a new law to ensure that we can actually do this.
Do you think that Commissioner Tisch would allow you to arrest Netanyahu in New York City?
I've appreciated Commissioner Tisch's leadership of the NYPD, and I think that she's done a good job at lowering crime across this city.
But do you think that she would go along with arresting Netanyahu in New York?
I can tell you that I'm going to exhaust every legal option in front of me, not to make new laws to do so.
All right, so
are you willing to do that? Will you do that?
I will work with the Trump administration when it is to the benefit of New Yorkers. My approach will never be reflexive, whether in agreement or opposition, but if it comes at the expense of the New Yorkers that I'm running to serve, then no.
Again. Okay, I had a thought. Criminals. Putin is a criminal. Netanyahu, to me, is a criminal. But you listen to her her talking, and she was smiling like, will you arrest this criminal in New York? It's almost like she's in agreement. Well, we got a criminal, convicted felon in the White House. And so people are embracing these criminals. And so what? So what if he's killing people? So what? I used my episode last week about the president is blowing up people in Venezuelan boats, alleging that they have drugs. There's not been one proof that people have been presented to show that these people actually have drugs on those boats. But yet, I think Rand Paul made a great statement. I showed that last week about, are we a country that's all of a sudden just say, well, and they got drugs, let's kill them. You heard this president of the United States said, we're just going to kill them. No due process, nothing. International waters of all places. And that lady that was on Fox was actually smiling about Netanyahu and international charges, criminal charges. Let's see what else he says.
I will not be working with the administration on harming the people that I look to represent. We started this campaign. We thought we had a chance to win. We thought it was a very, very small chance. It would require everything to go the way that it needed to. And the first decision that we made was to listen to New Yorkers. A lot of times politicians will lecture New Yorkers as to what they should care about. Say, these are the things that you should be asking me about. And we wanted to go out to New Yorkers and ask them, what do you care about in this city? And we heard from them, cost of living, cost of living, cost of living.
Yeah.
Can't afford my rent, can't afford my childcare, can't afford my groceries, can't even afford $2.90 to ride the bus.
Right.
And so we decided to build an entire campacation around making the most expensive city in America affordable, because that's what New Yorkers were telling us.
Well, Assemblyman, over
The Assemblyman will not denounce Hamas. The Assemblyman will not denounce Hassan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11. The Assemblyman just said in his response, well, it depends on occupation. That is code, meaning that Israel does not have a right to exist as a Jewish state, which he has never acknowledged. That is from the river to the sea. That's why he won't denounce globalize the Intifada, which means kill all Jews.
Let's give Mr. Mamdani a chance to respond to that.
I want to be very clear. The occupation is a reference to international law and the violation of it, which Mr. Cuomo has no regard for since he signed up to be Benjamin Netanyahu's legal defense team during the course of this genocide. And I find the comments that Hassan made on 9/11 to be objectionable and reprehensible. And I also think that part of the reason why Democrats are in the situation that we are in, of being a permanent minority in this country, is we are looking only to speak to journalists and streamers and Americans with whom we agree of every single thing that they say. We need to take the case to every person, and I'm happy to do that, which is why I was on Fox News yesterday talking about how I wish it was more like NASCAR, so we could see all the billionaires who are sponsoring you right on your suit jacket.
Is the plan still to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes to New York City with Donald Trump as his human shield?
And yet I think it is also important to say that the time of not only tolerating but celebrating Benjamin Netanyahu in this city from those in leading political positions, including the mayor, the time of looking at Benjamin Netanyahu coming to this city and then making military decisions from this city to kill civilians, that time has to come to an end. Because New Yorkers, at the very least, want to bring an end not only to this genocide, but also to the complicity we have in the violation of international
to Gaza. Do you believe the president deserves credit for brokering this ceasefire?
You know, I'll say,
first of all, two things. Globalized infanticide, that he explained to them he is not talking about killing all Jews. And there gets into that whole thing again. I mean, those people up there have done very anti-Semitic things. And also, he explained to them about what occupation really meant. It's not a code word he was talking about. It was talking about the situation that exists as it is presented at that time to deal with it effectively. And also, this whole thing that you're getting ready to listen to, there's no ceasefire. It was all made up. There's no ceasefire. This person has not stopped 8-9 wars.
that the news of a ceasefire leaves me with hope, the images of children celebrating, and I pray that it is lasting. I pray that it delivers
That didn't
peace.
happen.
And I think that the question of praise should come in the enforcement of this ceasefire, because what this agreement can never do is erase what the last few years of tragedy have been for so many, whether it be Hamas's horrific war crime of October 7th or the Israeli government's genocide of Palestinians since. And what we are talking about is no agreement can bring back the rubble or make it whole. It can bring back entire bloodlines that have been erased. It can bring back hostages that died in captivity. And so we continue to both mourn and remember what has occurred and hope that the future will look far different than it.
So at what point would you decide that he does deserve credit for it?
If the genocide ends, then I think that's something worthy to be praised. And if the hostages are returned, those things together have to be done in tandem.
So when I think about a politician like Andrew Cuomo representing Benjamin Netanyahu, who is killing journalists intentionally because they're reporting on the famine and the starvation in Gaza. And then I think about what it means to be an American, specifically a Democrat in American, and the value of free press and the value of human rights. And so I think that there's a lot more in common with Donald Trump.
I met a New Yorker who had more than 80 members of her family in Gaza killed by the Israeli military. How do you speak to that New Yorker, understand their pain, and then answer the question of how a leading candidate for mayor volunteered to defend the leader that effectively killed those family members? And, you mentioned it's a famine, right? We've just been certified by international experts that at least 500,000 Palestinians are in immediate danger of starvation, of acute malnutrition, of death. And since then, just in the little more than a week, we've now seen the Israeli military bomb a hospital and then bomb those who are coming to assist in the recovery right after the double tap strike. I mean, it is an affront to the conscience, and that what is so painful for us as Americans is that we are enabling this genocide.
Right.
It's not something that we're simply watching. We're not witnesses to it. It's a continued decision by our federal government.
For mayor of New York and not prime minister of Israel, but you've made inflammatory statements like calling Israel an apartheid state and questioning its right to exist as a Jewish state.
Okay, I'm going to get out of this. This, to be honest, this just really breaks my heart when I hear this, and I forgot about how Cuomo had agreed to represent Netanyahu. It's unbelievable to me that these things are existing, and it's not something made up. So I cut that short, because it all speaks for itself. You have a candidate, you have now the new mayor of New York, is talking about helping people. He mentioned the last thing he said about the double strike. Netanyahu blew up a hospital, and then he bombed again for people that came in to rescue people that were injured. And the guy that I was talking about tried to tell me this didn't exist, that they were an expert. They know these things, that they were part of, media doing stuff in the war and all this stuff. You can't make this up. You listen to a man who's talking over and over about believing, he even quoted Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. about caring for people. So I want to kind of close out with his final message after his victory.
Together, we will usher in a generation of change. And if we embrace this brave new course, rather than fleeing from it, we can respond to oligarchy and authoritarianism with the strength it fears, not the appeasement it craves. After all, if anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. And if there is any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. This is not only how we stop Trump, it's how we stop the next one. So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. We will hold bad landlords to account because the Donald Trumps of our city have grown far too comfortable taking advantage of their tenants. We will put an end to the culture of corruption that has allowed billionaires like Trump to evade taxation and exploit tax breaks.
Yes.
We will stand alongside unions and expand labor protections because we know, just as Donald Trump does, that when working people have ironclad rights, the bosses who seek to extort them become very small indeed. New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants,
Listen.
powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us.
You saw in the corner there was North Texas grocers are hit by the SNAP situation. I mean, you have a guy who worked. People are not talking about what he used to do. He worked helping people that were marginalized, that needed help in housing, and that were poor. His parents come from his mother doing that story about the marginalized street kids, and then his grandmother taking the mantle and creating an organization. But people want to get it all twisted. No, I'm at a point now where it's kind of like reminds me of Jerry Springer, and has Jerry's final thoughts. Well, the final thought is start off with, who's your daddy? A father is to protect his family. A father is to show love for his family. A father is to be able to do those things and to help. We have at the top, we have Abraham. Abraham is the father to those people that Zohran Mamdani is talking about. They're descendants of Ishmael and descendants of Isaac. And I'm not trying to throw off the marriage that he had with Keturah, but we have here a person that seems to understand who the father is, the father of many nations, the father to both Palestinians and to the Israel, the Hebrew, the Jew. We have to understand that we have to make things better to get better. And the best way to do it now is to listen to someone who wants to help us stay woke at a time such as this. Help us to understand that we are dealing with wars, culture wars of race and cultural divisions, bridging those divides between race and culture. We have to do better to get better. So who's your daddy? What are y'all going to do, people out there? What are you going to do to make this a better situation for people to live in? We have to do it. We have to make things better for all of us. And if we don't, things aren't going to get better. My final thought is Go in peace. Remember, rightly divide the word of truth. Show yourself a workman to do right things under God. And I just want to say to all of you out there that this has been a great day. It's been a great day. I'm Reverend Dr. Barry Staples, and I'm here to just say I'm always glad to visit with you. Like and subscribe to this channel. Donate. Click on the QR code. You can also go to our website, and you'll learn a lot more. Website is the same as the title of the show or the episodes. Race and Cultures, BridgingTheDivides.com. You get to learn more about me and what we like to do. And what I like to do is stick to what I said earlier about go out into Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and all the ends of the world. And I'll just take away from not preach the gospel, but to care about other people. Treat them. Love thy neighbor as you love thyself. Treat them with respect and dignity. As Zohran Mamdani says, to make our country, even Israel, open to all people, to care for all people. Race and Cultures, Bridging the Divides. So glad to be with you today. Until next time, which I try to do an episode every week. Till next time, stay blessed. Do something kind for someone else. Cross those cultural divides. Talk to someone who doesn't look like you or talk like you. If you don't understand the language, fake it till you make it and try to learn it. You can help each other learn one another's language. Thank you. Peace out. God bless you. I'll see you later.